This is the City of Waupaca, third Tuesday of the month, City Council meeting.
Welcome, everybody, to tonight's meetings. We actually have a public hearing, which is dealing with ordinance number 06-2020. This is an ordinance under the City of Waupaca, Chapter 2 of the governing body, creating Section 2.17, removal of disruptive person or persons at council, committee, or city meetings. So all meetings that the city would be holding. Before I really call this meeting, well, let's call the meeting to order, and then I'll have Aaron just explain what this is all about. I'll call the meeting to order and ask Sandy to take roll for us.
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett.
Here.
Lori Chestnut.
Here.
Paul Hagan.
Here.
Alan Keeland.
Here.
Scott Perchatsky.
Here.
Dave Peterson.
Here.
Paul Mayo.
Here.
Dimitri Martin.
Here.
Mary Fair.
Here.
And Eric Olson.
Here.
10 present. We have a quorum.
And Aaron, do you want to just explain what this ordinance is about?
Yes, Mayor Smith, thank you. So we do have this in our agenda tonight, so we will talk about it then as well. But this ordinance came up, we've kind of had discussions over the past month or maybe a little longer than a month ago about if someone was being disruptive to a council meeting and possibly multiple times and really just prohibiting us from continuing to do the business as we're set to do in council or committee meetings. And we're not expecting to change from what we've been doing in the past. It has been very, very few times over the last 2 decades that anyone has had to remove anyone from a meeting, and we anticipate that staying the same. But it did beg the question as to, we want to make sure that we're doing everything by the book and in accordance with open meeting laws. And when we reached out to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and legal advice, they did say, well, to be safe, we would definitely recommend you adopting an ordinance that says that you can remove somebody if they are disrupting the meeting and not allowing the business to be done. So that's what this ordinance is set in place to do. I think another important part of this ordinance is that it does have a fine of $250. That would not be imposed on the first time that someone had to be removed, but if someone kept coming back time after time after time after time, we wanted to make sure that, and acting in the same way, we wanted to make sure that there was something in place that would deter that. So that's kind of a summary of what we're looking at here in the ordinance at hand.
All right, thanks, Aaron. So this is a public hearing, and council, you'll have the opportunity to discuss and ask questions about the ordinance once we get into the council meeting. So at this time, we'd be looking for testimony in favor of the ordinance. If you'd like to give testimony in favor, please step up to the podium and give your name and address and limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any testimony in favor of the subject? If not, we'll take testimony in opposition. Is there any testimony in opposition? All right, I declare this hearing closed at 6:05 p.m. Next up, we actually have our council meeting. And I do call this meeting to order, and let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll ask Sandy to read the clerk's open meeting statement for us.
This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And also take roll again, Sandy.
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett.
Here.
Lori Chestnut,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Alan Keeland,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Mary Fair,
Here.
and Eric Olson.
Here.
10 present, we have a quorum.
All right, next up is the consent agenda. These are items where we take one motion and vote on all of these items with that one motion, unless council would like to see any of those individual items moved to the regular agenda where we would act on those separately. Would anybody like to see anything moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Chestnut, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. I'll try to say that slower. All right, regular agenda. Sandy says there's no new items on the regular agenda, so we would be looking for a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
That was by Hackett.
Yes.
Motion by Hackett, second by Peterson, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. All right, let's go to the non-agenda items and announcements. First of all, we have a presentation of certificate of appreciation to Brent Whitman for his 5 years of service to the city as a police officer. Brent is not able to attend tonight, and I'll make sure that the chief gets this certificate to him for his 5 years. And Chief, please thank him for his years of dedication to the city. All right, and then we also have a presentation of a plaque, which didn't show up today, but we're still going to get that to him later, for Eric Hintz for his 25 years of service to the city. And Justin, I see, is going to set this up for us.
Yeah, well, Eric was able to join the meeting from his house today. We did kind of a mock setup earlier today, and Eric has 25 years, all in the water department, and well, you can see him, the small little picture in the corner there. Eric, you're on. Make sure you unmute.
I think you're,
How's that?
there
Better.
you go.
Yeah, just want to say a quick thank you for the recognition. Enjoyed the 25 years so far and looking forward to a few more. And thank you very much.
So a few more means like 25 more?
Well, I was joking with Justin about that before, but maybe not 25 more, a few more.
Yeah, he said another 25 earlier today, and I said he was crazy, but 50 years, we definitely welcome that, but Eric's done a great job for us.
Justin, just real quick, you want to explain to everybody what Eric does for the city?
Eric is a water operator on our drinking water side, so he works within the water office, making sure that the city, all the residents, and all the tourists that come here have safe, clean drinking water.
Thanks. Thank you, Justin. Eric, thank you, and thanks for signing on with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Let me see if I can go back to Aaron's here. There we go. All right, next up, then we have public input. This is for non-agenda items. If there's anybody that would like to speak to the council about a non-agenda item, again, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, limit your time to 3 minutes or less. We know that we do not have anybody for public input in the library meeting room, And Aaron, did you get any letters that you feel are, or Sandy, that should be read for public input purposes?
I did not, Mayor.
Okay. Any council members that have any non-agenda items? All right. Let's go to community department head reports, and let's start with Marcy Reynolds. She's in the library. Are you going to come over here, Marcy? You're going to?
I'll go get her, Mayor.
Okay, she's on her way. I can see her. So a few months ago, we've added our community representative to come in to speak on things that are going on in our community. And Marcy is here, and I think you're representing the Community Arts Board tonight?
I am, yes, I am, Mayor.
I'll let you go.
I'm Marcy Reynolds, and thank you for including this update from actually, I'm representing both the Arts Board and the Waupaca Area Arts and Culture Network. I know you guys are busy, but we appreciate being able to speak. We appreciate the support that we've received from the City of Waupaca for both the Arts Board and the network. The Arts Board helped to form the network in 2018 following the adoption of the Waupaca Cultural Plan, because we saw the value in partnering with the arts and culture organizations in the city to strengthen our vibrant community. So I'm here to provide you with an overview of our current Arts Board activities. And sorry, my mask this is actually Fran's. I just washed it and it's too big for me. But anyway, my sub-agenda tonight is to demonstrate the value of the Arts Network so that you can see all of the collaboration that's been happening in the last couple of years. So first, I'm just going to start with cancellations and new plans. So as you know by now, our plans for summer nights concerts and Arts on the Square have all been canceled due to the pandemic. We realized early on that gathering crowds, as happens with these two events, would be detrimental to the health of the community. But we were also concerned about the result of so many cancellations being creating a creativity void. So we tried to find ways to fill that void with participatory events that could engage people throughout the summer yet not put them at risk. So it was at this point that we again realized the value of the Arts and Culture Network and the involvement and support of the City of Waupaca, because we needed to all work together with organizations and to have our plans be effective. So this is just a brief synopsis of the things that we've planned and are continuing to plan. The first thing that we planned was what we are calling the Summer Craft Cafe. We created 5 craft kits and worked with the library. The library distributed these kits via their curbside pickup. They were a fantastic partner because anyone that was ordering children's books for curbside, they also offered them the art kit, so they pretty much got rid of all the kits. So we know that every 2 weeks we had 100 people working on different projects. We asked the people doing the projects to submit their pictures, and we're creating an online gallery. And the library also went above and beyond and helped us promote the Craft Cafe. And the Historical Society, I believe, and Peg can correct me if I'm not correct on this, but their plan was to create a couple of craft kits for when we're done with our projects. And they'll continue that so that the whole summer has every 2 weeks an art project. Theirs are going to be more history-based, so it's really cool. Our Craft Cafe actually ended up being financially sponsored by the Community Foundation. They gave us an unsolicited grant to cover the costs of all this because they knew that arts organizations were being hit hard and they wanted to support specifically Waupaca. So kudos to Waupaca for being known as a arts community. So that was really great. We also worked on Make Music Day along with all of the members of the network. We were part of the first ever Waupaca's international event supported by the city. The city paid our registration for that. Sadly, we couldn't gather, but we ended up taking it online, and we're really super proud of that effort because we were one of 9 Wisconsin cities that did it. But Waupaca actually did its own homegrown events. Most of the other cities just kind of glommed onto the National Alliance and provided links. We actually did events. We had an open mic that We received 89 homemade music videos from people throughout the community, and we posted them on 10 Facebook pages. And what ended up happening is that increased the traffic to all those businesses that agreed to be part of it. And those pages, each video had between 1,500 and 1,900 views. So we just thought that was fantastic. It was way beyond our wildest dreams. We had some virtual campfire sing-alongs. The library handed out 100 free harmonicas and 14 sets of drumsticks. We had a harmonica class online, and we had a pandemic playlist on Spotify. So we were really excited about our first event, and we figure when we can do this again next year and be all together, it's going to really go over the top. The Arts Board also, because the National Spelling Bee was canceled due to COVID, we held an online Zoom, Facebook Live spelling bee. It turned out to be really a hoot. And we had 10 participants. The winner was Dr. Sarah Durst. She faced off in the final round with Waupaca native Martha Dewar, and all the contestants were able to work through their post-grade school spelling bee PTSD free of charge. So that was a lot of fun. We continue to do the arts. Believe me, there were people that had serious issues with spelling bees. We still are doing our arts and culture newsletter, and it's become quite widely distributed. Our list is 1,800 plus. We're trying to continue to report and promote, inspire, and talk about monthly events that have either been canceled or replaced by organizations. We're trying to point out the clever pivots that people are doing and opportunities and ways for people to cope with the summer of bummer, as we're calling it. And our goal is to continue to engage people and support coping during these challenging times, as well as support our Arts Network partners. We're continuing to do Waupaca Local Live, which is our another really great collaboration with the city of Waupaca. It's a cult favorite radio show. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but it happens once a month. Josh Werner is key to this show, and we've been doing it for about 3 years, and so when COVID hit and we couldn't come to the building, he got us all equipped to do it at home. And so my co-host and I are each in our homes on Zoom, and the musician is in their home, and somehow it all pulls together. We've downloaded music editing software into our personal computers, and we send the recordings to Josh. He edits them and makes them really high quality, and we still have our videos, so it's amazing how much help he's been to that. So we're really happy about that. Our July show we're actually doing tomorrow night with my niece Hillary Reynolds from Los Angeles, so that'll be a fun way to do the show. A couple more things that we're doing. I guess the biggest things, number one, our community art project this year. We started out last fall because Peg from the library approached us and asked if we would collaborate with the library to kind of point out kindness and gratitude. And so we came up with a project that we called Drawn Together by Kindness. It's designed to promote unity, belonging, gratitude, and kindness in the community, and supporting the work that the library is doing throughout the year with trauma-informed care. So we started working on it last fall, having community members design kindness flags that we planned to install to kick off Arts on the Square. However, COVID happened, so we had to kind of change our plans. But actually, we are still planning to do this installation, and installation day will be August 9th, which is a Sunday. We're going to very early in the morning, fill the downtown with these flags in a certain way. I can't really reveal too much more, but we have worked with the city and have approval for all of this, and they're actually helping. So downtown Waupaca and the grounds of City Hall will become a moving art project that's been created by, I think there's 700 flags, Mary? So a lot of people in the community have made these flags. I know Brian made one. So we're really excited to reveal that. And yeah, I'm not supposed to reveal any more about that. It's supposed to be top secret. But then that whole week, people can stroll around downtown and just try to find their flag and see the beauty of these flags that people have created. And then our biggest project that we decided to do to try to give something back to the community and support our community is we've decided to do a mural project, and we have the agreement of the owners of Antiques on Main. And we will be working on this project. We've actually started working on it, and just to give you kind of an update, well, first of all, we got some funding from the motel room tax grant, and we also got some funding from Community First Credit Union, so we're able to commission an artist. We did a call for artists. We had, I think, 8 or 9 submissions. We assembled a team to be the submission committee, and the team is some Arts Board members, but it's also community members, downtown business owners, and city people. I think, Sandy, you're on that committee too, right? And it turned out that they reviewed the submissions, and they weren't, there were some really nice submissions, but they weren't to the level we wanted them to be as far as we were so thrilled about them. I'm actually not on the committee, but the committee unanimously decided to take a second stab at this. So we're not really on track with our timeline, but the thing is, the timeline is something that we just made up. We would just hope that we can get the mural done before the snow flies. That's our goal. But what they're doing now is they're looking at different mural artists, looking at their work, and then I think we're going to pitch it to, I'm not sure what that process is. Mary knows more about it than me, but we have a process in place. Everybody agrees with it, and it's going to be fantastic. So the only other thing we're really working on right now is dependent on Winchester Academy. They're going to be doing the Roots of Jazz. I'm not sure if they're still going to proceed with it, but our part was going to be doing a storybook presentation at the grade schools like we did with the Bach Festival, where we go in and bring in musicians and work with kids. So we've decided that part of it we're not going to do. We can't stress the schools anymore. We don't even know if they're going to be open. Yeah, did they cancel Winchester finally? Okay. But we have agreed to possibly, if Winchester still wants us to, we're going to pick out some jazz books, because there's plenty of children's jazz books, and help them work on the storybook trail and put jazz books on the storybook trail. So that's pretty much what we're up to. That wraps up our summary of pandemic arts activities. Creativity enables us to be able to be constantly adapting, and so we're delighted that creativity and the arts are so well supported in the city. Don't worry, we have ideas that will take us into fall and winter. Beware, we still have a lot of stuff up our sleeves. We are creative, and we have great partners to collaborate with, because we're all in this together. So thanks again for your support of the arts, of our organizations, the Arts Network, and the Arts Board, and all of the members. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Marcy. Anybody have any questions, comments for Marcy? Well, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Let's go to department head reports then, and let's start with Kathy.
My report is on page 16 of the packet. We just keep trying to keep up with everything. We have added a part-time employee to our department with Tina's retirement in place now. Shelley from Waupaca Online, she's their administrative assistant, is going to give us a day a week to help with learning cross-training on our utility billing system, so that we can alleviate some of the stress that Barb Robert has with maintaining the deputy clerk's position and all of the utility billing items. So we're trying to keep up. I'm sorry if you see me back here. I am folding paychecks right now. So we're trying to keep while we're down a full-time position and with vacations. We monitor the legislation that's still coming out on a daily basis, constantly getting updates from the CDC and the League of Municipalities and the state. So we're working on that. Otherwise, I don't have anything else.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. Questions? All right, let's go to the library. Peg?
So the library is still offering our curbside service, and there are many people who are grateful for that. They just don't feel comfortable coming into the building. But we are allowing people to come in for 30 minutes of browsing with rules in place. We did discontinue this week the contact tracing waivers that we were having people sign. It was becoming onerous for staff and for our library patrons. And when we talked to the Department of Health in the county, Judd Walt said that with the level of safety procedures we had in place, that the contact tracing would never really be necessary with close contact, with the close contact not actually happening. So in addition to that, we have computers. People can use computers for 1 hour a day. We have study rooms that have computers in them if they need a private place for those. This can also be used 1 hour a day, once per day. So we have been really careful about making sure we're disinfecting after somebody leaves a space. And then if we can, close it off for overnight to make sure that there's no residual that may be there. We have had quite a few visitors. They've been very impressed with the safety pieces that we have in place and have thanked us. There have been people who said they haven't ventured out until they could come to the library where they felt like it was a COVID-safe place. In addition to that, we are holding our virtual summer library program where we are trying to read 5,000 books this summer, and I can say that we're at 3,500 books, and we have 41 days left. So we're going to get there. I'm sure of it. We're going to much exceed that. We've had 3,800 badges earned, and we have 292 active readers that are actually participating in the program. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about is that the Wisconsin Public Library, the digital library, is making anti-racism books available without holds. And these are really things that help us to understand what our neighbors who are people of color, Black or Indigenous people may be feeling, and how we can help them to have that advantage that we all experience as white people. We can also check out toys, games, puzzles. So if you're looking for something fun with your family, give us a call and we can recommend some of those things. And the other thing we're doing is we're collecting stories and recipes from our safer at home time. So if there was a recipe that you turn to, that comfort food, and you want to share that with the community, this is a great way to do that. You can go onto our website and there's a form you fill out with your recipe and your stories. And we're putting that together in conjunction with the Historical Society, and they will end up with all of the originals, then will become a part of that historic record. And the other part is that we have been collecting photographs from people who've submitted them for their experiences during the pandemic. This is part of an art installation, so this is our exhibit room coordinator who's doing this, and that will be a part of the Arts on the Square. We're planning on exhibiting those photos, and that will be a juried exhibit. And obviously our spaces inside are not available to people right now, so we're trying to provide some of that outdoor space. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Peg. Chief, you want to go next?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. My report can be found on page 45. The police department, we met with the commission. We're continuing to meet virtually. We met on July 14th. One of the things that they were informed of is the police department is participating in the Waupaca County Speed Grant. And that grant is running from June through September of this year. There's $50,000 that was allotted for Waupaca County. And the purpose of the grant is high visibility and focused with decreasing the crashes and obtaining voluntary compliance with the regular traffic regulations. The officers involved in the campaign will take a zero tolerance for inattentive driving or distracted driving and seatbelts. And the officers are doing this in 4-hour blocks. So if you see a bunch of squad cars out, that's what they're doing. We also, within the last month, we have received several thank you cards from not only the people that live in the city of Waupaca, but also the surrounding townships, just wanting to show support to the police department. They wanted the officers to be reminded of how much they've been appreciated and that they respect the fine men and women of the Waupaca Police Department. So was really nice to get all those thank you cards. And then in the chief's report, if you're going through the crime statistics, you'll actually notice that our assault offenses were up. That's because our domestic abuse complaints were up and fights were up during the summertime. And a lot of that gets correlated, unfortunately, with the hot weather that we get. It seems to increase the crime rate. There was also a kidnapping and abduction that did stem from a family complaint, and the reason why it says that is just as to how it has to be reported to the IBR. So the last thing in that report was we had an individual that was breaking into a lot of vehicles. So in that report, you see a lot of vehicle thefts where somebody broke into there. They were arrested, so we are aware as to who that person was. And then lastly, we went into closed session to discuss one of the final candidates for the police officer position that someone will be starting in August. That was to fulfill our swing shift. And it was nice. The individual actually has gone through, he did a psychological and he did his physical testing. And his name is Paul Shabelsky. And Shabelsky, if you're from Point, it's probably common spelling. It doesn't look anything like how you pronounce it. But he'll start on August 3rd with us, and that'll bring us back to full staff. That's all that I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. If you follow along at home, my memo starts, or my update, excuse me, starts on page 38. Our two big projects, the treatment plant, are underway and moving along. Aeration project, we put in our order for all of our materials and equipment, just kind of waiting on those to be delivered so we can start on construction. Clarifier rehab is being constructed. We got one tank offline. Those parts are being fabricated. Again, that's with a local contractor, Waupaca Machine and Repair. Last time I was here, I talked about how a lot of our stuff was on back order. We had the lift station generator at Cover Bridge, and then the two trucks. Got an update on those. The lift station should arrive sometime in August or late August. The pickup truck for the water department is expected to be here as well in August. And then our medium-duty plow truck is still expected to be here by October. So that's good news to get our plow truck before the snow falls. Mm-hmm. And while those weren't initially when we were hoping them, at least they're a date that we can still work with. Main Street, we had 90% plans reviewed by myself, Roger Hansen, Mark Nolenberg. We submitted those comments back to SCH. So they are working on those comments, and Main Street, as far as a project, is going to be upon us before you know it. This project will be let out to bid in September or October, meaning that's when contractors will start being able to bid on it. By mid-November, we'll know where that dollar amount will land for this project. So it's coming. Granite Street is underway with work primarily in the alleyways. Work has not progressed as much as I'd like to see. We're behind a little bit, but it is a tight alleyway. We kind of expected some issues back there. We're still on track to complete before the fall rolls around. Pretty soon we will be rotating the equipment back up to Granite Street, and then the project's really going to take off from there. Water side, Mark and myself met with the Platteville group about modeling our system. That's being done by Austin Polobitsky, a Waupaca alumni here, who's a professor down at UW Platteville. So a lot of municipalities pay engineering firms to model their water system, which can cost anywhere from 10 to 20 grand, depending on the size. He wants to do this for us, and we're working with him to try and make this thing a great tool for us. So we had a meeting with him. It looks really nice. He wants to keep revising and keep fine-tuning, and we're just giving him as much information as we can to make this a fantastic tool, cost-effective, of course, in the long run for us, and great experience for him and his students. The roof here at City Hall Library was completed today. They might have a little bit of equipment and supplies up on the roof they have to clear out, but that is finally finished. So we got a brand new roof up on the City Hall Library building, the flat part, I should say. Russ is working on getting a few proposals to replace the boiler at the police department. We're going to compile all those proposals, and those will be going to the Police and Fire Commission Board for approval here in the near future. We did start work out at Foxfire for the groundwater study. We installed 4 wells, monitoring wells. We were not able to finish up the last 2. They have a drill rig on a ATV, which they want to use for using in people's backyards. That was not available, and the reason why we want to use this is because, well, there's some really nice yards out there. We want to minimize the disturbance, so they are planning to come back next week to finish up drilling that. Had a lot of good conversations with the residents out there, and that is moving right along. We're expecting in about a year to have enough data to figure out what's going on out there and try and alleviate some of the issues. We recognize Eric tonight for his 25 years. I'd like to note Roger Hansen is celebrating 33 years on July 6th. So 2 big anniversaries in the early July period there. And finally, we've been talking internally. I did not write this one on the report. We're looking at doing a citywide garbage and recycling pickup service. It's been bounced around internally. It's been gaining some speed. It would not be basically buying garbage trucks and hiring drivers. We would put out an RFP and look to contract with a private garbage and recycling pickup service. So somebody like Advanced or Waste Management, Harder's, that sort of thing. So I'm putting out a survey for all the residents to take. It's pretty straightforward. It's about 5 or 6 questions trying to get a feel of what the residents would like to see and how they like to see it done. Talking with other municipalities and getting information, typically for a resident, you get weekly garbage pickup and every other week recycling. That can cost you upwards of $400 or more a year. Other municipalities report that when they've gone out for RFP and got costs back to their residents, that can be anywhere from $100 to $200 a year. So there's some significant savings that we could find here for our residents. But again, we have a lot of information that we need to get together, and that's what we're in right now for that phase. So I just wanted to put that out there. That survey is going out and would encourage every resident to take that survey.
All right. Thank you, Justin.
Justin.
Any questions? Yeah.
Is that a residential only?
At this point, that's what we're looking at is a residential only. Some of the things we have to work through is who we would include and who we wouldn't. Initially, we're thinking the single families for sure would be. We're not sure if we go into multifamily, and we've had discussions on including commercial as well, but most municipalities or all the municipalities pretty much just do residential.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks, Justin. Andrew, you with us?
Yep, right here.
Thanks.
So we just started some of our programs, so we're back to what our normal would be considered last week. We started swimming lessons session 2, disc golf 101, art in the park, and a running group and a virtual fishing tournament. So it feels good to provide some stuff for our community, but also keep people safe. So those were all programs that we thought we could make sure that we followed the rules placed upon us and move forward. So we did get people signed up for all those and playground program as well. And we'll just continue moving forward with that and hopefully, offer something safe to the community from here on out. As far as our parks go, rentals have been going well since the beginning of July. It has been slow, and there's still people who are canceling their reservations. As we move forward, I think, people are just a little bit uneasy still about having big groups together, and people are taking responsibility and canceling those moving forward. So it's been a little bit slower than normal, but that is to be expected. We are starting to have a few more vandalism issues in our parks, and I think a lot of it is just the warmer weather and maybe some of the youth in our parks getting a little bit bored with not things to do. So we'll address those. We've been addressing those, and we'll continue to work on that. Things at the beach have been going well. I haven't had any issues down there. Lifeguards are doing good things, having some saves, helping some first aid stuff, and following all the rules down there. Senior Center as well has been going pretty good. We've started opening up a few programs, a few classes, some nail clinic and things like that. Everything is by appointment only. Things have been going smooth. Everyone's wearing a mask down there. Classes have been small, but to those people that are participating, it's definitely an important thing for them both physically and socially to get out and about and to be around people again. So definitely some good things happening down there. Other than that, it's just normal day-to-day stuff moving forward.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? All right, Josh? You don't know how to use the software back there?
Well, that would have saved me a trip. On the IT side of things, been doing a lot of work with security cameras, worked with Andrew to basically reposition most of the cameras at Swan Park to totally do different coverage out there because their needs have changed out there, added a couple. Going to be doing some work with wastewater to improve some of their lift station cameras, and just a lot of odds and ends right now on the IT side. Did some minor server upgrades. Then before COVID hit, I was working on just some small, checklist of little things we could do to mitigate some ransomware risks. I'm kind of picking up on that now that everyone's back here, and just some small setting changes and other little things I can do that would help prevent something like that. On the community media side, Waupaca Radio recently celebrate 5 years on the air. We've made some changes on the air with our music based on other changes by some other stations just to eliminate duplication. Working through our FCC license renewal process, and I've been approached by a couple churches about airing services on our radio station. That turns out to be a pretty sticky topic, so that's something I've been studying with some legal counsel, and a friend I have that's got some access to some FCC attorneys as well, just to find out more about that. In the past, that was something we always said no to just due to past practice because we're not public access. And it's, I think, a topic worth revisiting and just finding out how sticky it is as I go through that process. But that's something taking a fresh look at. On the Wopac Online side of things, we've got a land lease agreement in front of a property owner at an advantageous spot east of Manawa, and he's reviewing that to see if he's okay with us to move forward on erecting a tower out there. And I've given him a deadline to give us an answer so I can have this on our first meeting agenda in August if he is okay with everything. Ralph and I have been continuing discussions with Waupaca County on the tower project they want to do, and we'll be meeting with them soon. They're finalizing kind of tower placement so they can get their application in. I've met and have been having conversations with the town of Caledonia, who has a lot of lack of internet issues out there, and finding that that's a very challenging area due to the trees and hills, but we're looking at what we can do to help them out in some of the areas out there. Our staff recently installed 3 more POPs or access points to serve some customers in some areas we previously could not reach, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Questions before he runs out? Thank you. All right, next up we have Sandy.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. My report is on page 51 and 52 in your packet. Last month I reported on the subgrant through the CARES Act from the WEC. that I applied for, and we have received the grant money. And now it's a matter of working on the paperwork with reporting due in September. And then secondly, my department's been extremely busy with the election duties and everything that's involved with an election. And to date, as I left the office, we've issued 636 absentees and have received 214 voted ballots back. So if anybody else is out there in the public that wants to absentee vote, you can come in my office or get a hold of us and we'll get that done. So that's it for me.
All right.
Thank
Sandy,
you.
Sandy?
Sandy,
Yes, I'm sorry.
is there any limit on absentee voting?
No.
Is the number, the 600 some that you say you've gotten in, or you've issued so far?
Issued.
Is that above average? Above average?
Oh, yes, definitely. Usually 150 to 200 for a normal election like the partisan primary.
All right, thank you.
So we're way above.
Thanks, Sandy.
All right. Thank you, Sandy.
Yep.
Aaron, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So I'll just touch on a few things. Probably the first thing I'll touch on is just in case you're a council member and you did not receive an email from me on Sunday evening, I'm currently in self-quarantine, which is why you see me on a computer screen instead of in the council chambers tonight. We were informed Sunday morning that our daughter had close contact with someone at daycare from a known positive. And because we're in the same household, we'll be quarantining for a period of time that is yet to be determined. We were told that if she's doing fine for at least 72 hours, depending on if she tests positive or not, she can go back on the July 29th, but that doesn't necessarily mean that for us. We were all tested yesterday, our whole family in Green Bay, and we're expecting test results sometime soon. Everyone's feeling good, just some minor symptoms. So I'll be seeing you guys virtually, at least for the next week and a half or so. Starting to get just kind of on that same theme, we're starting to get more calls. I'm starting to get more calls from employees who just have questions on the proper protocol when there are close contacts. So far, no one has tested positive within the organization, knock on wood, but we are starting to get more and more of those calls. And I commend our staff for wanting to act appropriately and asking questions when they have them. So I think that's been fantastic. Also, along those lines, we've been reviewing policies that we enacted in April through the FFCRA, or the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That was a federal act that then we adopted as a council. We will be bringing that forward again in August as we have to bring up to date one of the three sections in there. There was a sunset date for our emergency responders in June. We're going to match that with the other two sections. So we're going to move the sunset date for that policy to December 31st. So you guys will be seeing that just to get everyone on the same playing level. One thing with that emergency responders designation is that it was legal opinion at that time that we make that as broad as possible. So actually, I would say most of our employees fall under that, but we will make that retroactive. So no one should have anything to be concerned about there. A grant writer update, Terry Schultz, Ron Sari, and myself were joined by Megan Schusler. She's from Theta Care. She's actually on the Theta Care Foundation board, works with grants and grant writers a lot. She was a valuable asset to have on our interview committee. We had 5 candidates, really strong candidate pool, working through that right now. We're excited about our options there. And we're hoping to have a candidate selected by the end of this week, just working on some reference checks and so on and so forth. Plan Commission, we have a special meeting. Well, we did have a special meeting, primarily to go through the zoning code, although we did have about an hour's worth of topics first. That was on July 13th, and we have one strictly to go through the zoning code rewrite on July 29th. We got through a section of the new rewrite, but certainly not all of it, and we'll continue to plug away on that. There is no rush as we go through this. This happens once every 40 years, so we want to make sure it gets done right. We might have a couple more meetings just to make sure that Plan Commission fully understands it, feels good about their recommendations moving forward, and then it'll eventually be moved to the council level, and you guys will see kind of a comparison of old code versus new code. and we'll have an opportunity to ask questions too. There will be an article in the paper on housing. Angie and I met late last week, and we will be, I guess I thank Angie, and I don't know if Angie's joining us tonight. I know she has been joining us online, but thank you, Angie, for doing that and shedding a light on what's going on with the housing and new construction around here. And then I really want to just thank our staff and a certain segment of our staff for the collaboration with this utility billing that we're going through right now. And really, it's a result of us not filling that deputy treasurer position immediately. As I've mentioned in a past newsletter, that deputy treasurer position, we're holding off for a couple months to give ourselves a better opportunity to see what shared revenues may look like in 2021 and beyond. We want to make sure that we make the best decision for the organization, not just for the short term, but 10 years, 20 years out, and knowing that information will give us that opportunity. But in the meantime, Kathy's had to take on more, and we're also trying to train some people on some utility billing to help just shift some things around so we can be as efficient as possible and people can do their jobs during this time. So I want to thank Barb, Josh, Shelley from Waupaca Online, and Sherry in City Hall specifically, and Kathy and Sandy, thank you guys too for your role in it. And then the very last thing I have is the marketing Waupaca progress. A couple meetings ago, I discussed the effort with Noah Lanke and getting videos put together, the 45 to 50 video library that we are going to use to basically just show everyone why we think Waupaca is as great as it is. And he is coordinating with a bunch of testimonials or people that we're going to use for testimonials right now. So he's moving along with that project. And we hope to have a couple videos for you sometime in the next month as a sneak peek as to what that project could look like. So, Mayor, that's about all I have for tonight.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? Comments? All right, let's go into new business then. We have a resolution, and this is you, Kathy, a resolution approving allocation and project plan amendment for tax incremental district number 4, City of Waupaca, Wisconsin, making certain findings with respect thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. The item starts on page 74 of the packet, and this is the resolutions that are being approved by the council tonight to do the allocation from TIF 4 to TIF 10 and to amend the project plan to allow for a half-mile radius around the perimeters of the TIF districts. All of the information we've seen through the Planning Commission, and the Joint Review Board has started the process. Once the resolution is approved by council, it goes back to the Joint Review Board and then filed with the Department of Revenue. But this is part of the continued economic development tools that the city has available. And if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions? Everybody understands why we're doing this or suggesting that we do this? All right, we separated these into two separate motions because they're two different resolutions. So we're looking at approving resolution number 1462.
I move to approve.
Motion by Keelan.
Second.
Second by Chestnut, right? Chestnut? That we approve resolution number 1462. Discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
and Eric Olson.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, and then you have 1463, Kath. Same thing. Want to add anything?
Same thing. This is for TIF 10, which is the School Street area. Again, this is to allow a half-mile radius around the edge of the TIF. This does help in incorporating the downtown area to be able to provide economic assistance as we're looking at possibly doing some grants or loans to help with the Main Street project next year. So this gives the city some additional economic availability. And again, this would help with a transfer from TIF 4, but no deterrent in our plans for closing the TIFs sooner than later. So that's all I have.
All right, so again, we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Hackett, second by Fair. Chestnut. Okay, sorry. This is Resolution 1463, a resolution approving project plan amendment for TID number 10 of the city of Waupaca, Wisconsin. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin. Dimitri?
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
and Eric Olson.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Kathy, thank you. Next up, we have an extension of the agreement for the old St. Mary's property with Mr. Nino Pedrelli. And Aaron, this is on you. If you're talking, we're not hearing.
Oh, there we go. I was saying I had a lot to say.
Well,
All
don't
right,
start
sorry
over.
guys. So page 104 in your packet has a memo, and it wasn't very long ago that we discussed this. It was January 7th. At a council meeting, we brought forward the original agreement and we amended it at that time. If we would have known on January 7th what we would have been dealing with over the late spring and early summer with the pandemic, we probably would have extended it to the date that we're requesting to extend it to now anyways. At that time, we extended the agreement to June 16th. Because of the pandemic, it's been very slow from a commercial standpoint, and there's been very little movement and no interest. Now, Nino or Mr. Pedrelli has been still marketing it on websites with some preliminary site plans and concept plans. And we've been in touch with the broker and himself, and there just hasn't been any interest at this point. As you guys also know, around the same time, the Arts Board came forward and they created an arts task force to look into the feasibility of an arts center at St. Mary's. And they kind of took a similar route. They got it. I think they had some good momentum as it started, and then the pandemic killed that momentum, and now they're starting again. And you guys will hear an update from them at our next council meeting. But right now, we're just looking to extend that agreement to bring it up to date, really to take it through January 1st of 2021. I think it's important to note that the agreement does state that if the city comes up with a project during that time, we have the ability to move forward with that project. It would be a council decision. And I can tell you that we're continuing to have conversations, and we will continue to have conversations between now and January 1st to give ourselves the best opportunity to make use of that parcel. So we will also look forward to hearing from Marcy. I believe, Marcy, you will be the one presenting in August. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Sounds good. So with that, I would be asking, I guess the recommendation is to approve the second amendment to the acquisition and development agreement for the property located at 223 Division Street, which takes it through January 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Fair, second by Peterson, that we enter into a second amendment to the acquisition and development agreement with Mr. Nino Pedrelli for the property located at 223 South Division Street, better known as the old St. Mary Magdalene Church site. Discussion? Sandy, will call the roll.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
and Eric Olson.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Next up, this is you also, though. This is the first reading of ordinance number 06, 2020. This is an ordinance under the City of Waupaca, Chapter 2, the governing body, creating Section 2.17, removal of disruptive person or persons at council, committee, or any other city meetings. And again, this is just the first reading. You want to just again summarize, Aaron? This is another meeting, different meeting, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is on page 107 of your packet. And to go over it again, this is an ordinance that allows the presiding officer of any city meeting, that means city council or a committee meeting, to remove anyone who is disorderly or disruptive to the meeting and to the business at hand. It also states the types of things that we could expect to remove someone for, and that's in this section 1B. You can see them there on the ordinance. And then in C, it does state that any person violating the provisions of this ordinance multiple times, is the key word, shall be subject to a fine of $250 for each incident. Now, if it happens once, there would be no fine, but that is just to deter someone from coming back and acting the same way time after time after time again with no repercussions. I said it in the public hearing, but this is something that, you know, we've kind of been acting this way anyway for the last 10, 20 years. But, you know, as times get a little stranger, this came up in a conversation about maybe over a month ago, and we wanted to make sure that we were complying with all open meetings laws if we did have to remove somebody. The recommendation that we got at that time was to, yeah, you're good, but you should probably enact an ordinance that states that if you don't have one in your city code. So that's what we're looking to do here. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, and again, the third time I said this is the first reading of that. Anybody have any comments about how this is written or any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Mary.
My only question would be, is it okay to be less than specific about the multiple times? That's kind of vague, but maybe it on purpose is vague?
I wouldn't say it's vague. I think multiple means more than one, and I think the way Aaron described it, I think, is in line with that.
Okay.
Sort of like the first time is, subject to removal. I think it's important, a good thing that it says multiple, because it's clear that a first offense does not bar that individual from attending subsequent meetings, which could be considered a First Amendment violation. So I think that it does include multiple times trigger is appropriate.
Is a second.
And I think multiple in this case means more than one.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Tom.
All right, again, so you'll see this at our meeting in August, which is August 4th. Okay, let's move on then. This is you also, Aaron. This is an update on the City Council Committee meeting guidelines.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. So this is pretty simple, guys. The only thing we've updated here is you'll see in red, and this is on page 108 of your packet, and I'll just read it. This is in regards to public input and how people give public input. And I just added, if a member of the public wishes to give public input during that portion of the meeting, they may be allowed to enter the council chambers upon receiving permission by the individual presiding over the meeting. Other community members that may be attending as a presenter or a resource for an agenda item may be allowed in the council chambers. In both instances, the ability to enter council chambers will be dependent on social distancing capabilities. The reason we added that is just because we've had some technical difficulties and we've brought some people in and others have given it over the big screen and the computer in the other room. And we just want to make sure that we have it in writing on what we allow and what we don't. So that's just kind of an administrative thing. Everything else remains the same for this, at least for the time being.
Okay, so with that addition, we're looking for you to approve the updated guidelines for these meetings.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Martin, that we approve of the update of the city council committee meeting guidelines. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Are there any provisions for allowing public to do virtual input?
Alan, that's a good question. We have talked about that, and what's been talked about is like posting a link. There's somewhere where someone can access, and that opens it up to a lot of possible disruptions, where anyone can access a link and come on and who knows what their intent is. Kind of the whole idea behind, sitting behind a keyboard and making comments is a lot easier than doing it in person. And that's something we've talked about, not only us, but also I've talked about with all these other city administrators and municipalities and how they're doing things. So we've decided against that for now. And that's kind of the reason.
You can, it's not ideal, but we do offer people to speak virtually by opening up the library meeting room A where they can attend. And as Marcy can attest, she's the only one there tonight, so she's got it. She's got the whole room to herself. So, I mean, that's the best thing that we've been able to come up with right now, Alan, is to allow people to meet virtually at City Hall. If somebody comes up with a better idea, we would certainly like to have that, like to know about it. Any other discussion? Voice vote here. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Aaron, you want to just go through this statement of solidarity too then?
Yeah, just with everything going on in the country right now, this is a statement of solidarity that we are going to just kind of have as approved and supported by City of Waupaca Council. So I'll just read through it. With the events happening nationwide over the past month, the City of Waupaca felt it necessary to issue the following statement to help promote a nation, state, and community we strive to live in. The City of Waupaca supports an environment and community that does not condone racism or violence in any form. The City of Waupaca believes that all individuals must be treated in an inclusive and equitable manner regardless of, but not limited to, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, experience, ability, and disability, age, religion, geography, national origin, ideology, perspective, and any other characteristics that make individuals unique. We believe the collective ideas, thoughts, experiences, and knowledge of all individuals collaborating together make us a stronger and more unified community that will help us all achieve our goals. Respectfully, City of Waupaca Common Council.
All right, so this is a statement that has been put together, and we're asking that the council approves this at tonight's.
So moved.
I'm sorry, motion by Martin,
Second.
Yeah.
second by Chestnut. All right, so we have a motion by Martin, second by Chestnut, that the council approves of the statement of solidarity. Any discussion? Again, voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion approved. All right, operator's license, bartender's license number 1507, on page 111. We would just need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Fair, second by Perchatsky, that we approve license report number 1507, which is an operator's license. Any discussion? Yeah, again, voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. All right, next up, this is our issues, projects discussion, which is, we've always set this at a 30-minute max for discussion on this. This is an item on the agenda which does not require action and cannot have action. It's just for discussion purposes only. So what we're looking at tonight is we have a council discussion on the consideration of a mask ordinance, and why it's on your agenda tonight is because Alder Alan Keelan had requested that it be put on the agenda, and we've had some discussion, Alan and myself and Aaron, we had a discussion last week and felt this was the best way to include the council in on the discussion of this issue. So, Alan, I'm going to let you go.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. After the last council meeting, I asked the mayor and Aaron if the mayor had the power or desire to declare a medical emergency that would require the use of masks. I explained that I thought it was more expedient, quicker, to declare an emergency than to go through the process of an ordinance. And the three of us did meet on July 14th virtually and discuss the whole idea. Now, if I had my druthers, I would have the Waupaca County Health Officer declare emergency, but I don't have that kind of influence. So after a lot of discussion, we decided to seek council's opinion about the Wisconsin health officials on Sunday reported 830 more confirmed cases of COVID-19. That brings the total number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the state to 42,315.
You're fading in and out a little bit, Alan.
Make up 10.3% of the 8,089 tests that have been processed since Saturday. Just yesterday, the Surgeon General, in an interview with Fox and Friends, said, quote, "I'm pleading your viewers, I'm begging you, please understand that we are not trying to take away your freedoms when we say wear a face covering. We are saying if we do these things, we can actually open and stay open," end quote. Today, President Trump said, quote, "We're asking everybody that when you are not able to socially distance, wear a mask, get a mask. Whether you like the mask or not, they have an impact, they have an effect. We need everything we can get." France has issued a masking requirement for, quote, "The obligation to wear a mask would apply in shops, establishments open to the public, covered markets, or even banks." According to the last survey I saw, 71% of Americans support a national mandate to wear masks, because that's the fastest way to reopen American business. That source is Quinnipiac University, which is an independent polling organization. As most of you know, many major retailers are requiring masking in order to shop in their stores. Menards, Costco, Kohl's, Festival Foods, Whitman Market, Pick and Save, just to name some of the ones that are local. So I bring this discussion to council for the purpose of sounding you out about how you feel regarding a declaration or an ordinance to require masking inside all buildings within the city limits. Now, some of you feel that it's overreach on the part of government, but I liken it to the time that we banned smoking in our parks. Several questions can arise if this goes into effect. Who pays for the masks? How do we enforce it? What if I can't wear a mask for medical reasons? When will it end, etc.? All of which I hope we can address soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. So I see this as an open discussion, but obviously we have people that are attending virtually, and then we also have people that are attending within the council chambers. So, as if you want to speak, just ask to speak, and I'm not going to say no, but I just want to make sure that we do this in an orderly fashion. So, give your name and then just say that you would like to say something. Anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Okay, Dimitri, go ahead.
There's been some confusion as to whether or not it's constitutional for a mask ordinance. And I did some research under Wisconsin statute 323.14, parent 4, parent A, which governs local government's powers and duties during a declared emergency. Local governments have the general authority to order by ordinance or resolution whatever is necessary and expedient for the health, safety, and protection and welfare of the citizens and property within the local unit of government. So, I mean, I think that we have the ability. Now, whether we want to or not is another question, but I don't think it's fair to say it's unconstitutional.
Aaron, do you want to add a little bit to that, to what Dimitri's question was and his answer?
I do, yeah, sure. That is a question that we worked through over the last couple of weeks, Dimitri, and all of council as well. And the question is, can we legally enact a mask ordinance? And the way I have it kind of written is the answer is still gray, but probably yes, if it's written specifically and if it's backed by data and reasoning behind it. Another important piece of that is that we would need the local support or the support of our local health expert, in this case, county public health. And that's what we've been told from a legal standpoint. So, like I said, there are some things, and I know there are some cases that are being legally challenged throughout the state of Wisconsin. I guess that brings up another point that I should probably bring up is, do we open ourselves up to legal challenges by enacting such an ordinance? And we are being told that we could and probably should expect a legal challenge if such an ordinance is enacted. So that's just a little bit on both of those points. So just information.
Mayor, do you mind if I
just go ahead, Tom.
So just to kind of clarify the question regarding constitutionality, Alderperson Martin did quote the correct statute giving the authority under emergency powers to a local municipality to enact whatever is necessary. That's a statutory grant of authority, and it doesn't really answer the question of whether or not it's constitutional or not. And the federal Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, under the 10th Amendment, reserves any rights not granted in the Constitution to the states, and this state has given this statutory grant of authority. So then, I guess that's a roundabout way of saying is that such an ordinance would not be unconstitutional. And as Alderperson Martin pointed out, there is that authority under that statutory scheme. I guess the next question, though, is if an ordinance like that was going to be considered, it would likely have to be in conjunction with an emergency declaration or a resolution to that effect, so that it's clear as to what the purpose of the ordinance is for. I mean, on its face, it's clear what it's for, but there has to be certain restrictions in place about how the local interest is being served by the ordinance.
Thanks, Tom. Anybody else that would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Okay.
Because
Sorry,
I
Mary.
have a
Go ahead.
question of Tom. Who, Mr. Hart, who can determine an emergency situation?
Well, a local government can under, and in fact, Mayor Smith did in March, made a mayoral declaration of an emergency, which was then, that's sort of what we've been, you have been voting on these last few meetings with the reopening plan. That is all part of a emergency declaration.
If we or the county or both of us declare an emergency or redeclare an emergency, then we could go forward. And as far as being open to a lawsuit, we would have met that criteria at least. That we declared that we would declare an emergency order for mandatory face masks, and we've already met that obligation to declare an emergency situation. Does that make sense?
I think what you're asking is, has the city already made such a declaration, or does it need to make a further declaration?
Correct.
My recommendation is that if such an ordinance was going to be discussed or considered, that a declaration of emergency would take place in a resolution at the same time. I mean, I guess I would note is that Waupaca County has ended their emergency declaration.
Okay. Thank you. Also, just FYI, and probably most people know this, the Waupaca School Board did vote for a mandatory face mask when school begins for all staff and students. They did that last night. So that's just a piece of information we should take into consideration. I personally feel that we need to have an a mandatory mask declaration or ordinance, whichever way we choose to go, because I think the science proves that that is how we can protect people from COVID, from spreading of COVID, and it's also then the effects of that are include getting us back open and running sooner if everybody would have to and would comply with a mask ordinance. And I think that, to me, that is the key, is to get everybody back to some form of normal as soon as we can.
I'd like to add to that.
Is this Dimitri again?
Yes.
Go ahead.
That I would also be in support of a mask ordinance, although I would like to see a mask ordinance have some parameters where it would only apply to indoors. And of course, as Alderman Keelan said, that you would have to have some provisions for people who have disabilities. But I look at this as kind of like a business who has a sign at the front of their storefront that says no shoes, no service. Well, just add no mask to that. I mean, just have our businesses require that, so those public spaces, indoor spaces, people are wearing masks, just like they have to wear shoes. You know, it's.
Okay. Thank you,
Right.
Dimitri. Let me go council here first, Steve. I'll get back to you. Eric, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what does that look like if we're talking about all indoor spaces? What does that look like for restaurants? Are you supposed to pull the mask down and take a bite, put the mask back up, take a bite? I'm just trying to picture in a restaurant how that works. I can't picture it.
Well, I would think that we would need some time to see what other local governments that have passed this have put together to address that, because I can't imagine that hasn't been a topic of discussion and controversy in other communities. So if we just do the research, I think we could come up with some options in that situation.
I believe that the city of Winona, Minnesota has a reasonable approach to this. And I think some of you may have seen that the declaration.
Okay.
But what Winona.
Are you done, Alan? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's.
Okay. Dave, Pete?
I guess my question was, and that's wording of it about all public buildings or all buildings, you said, right? All indoor buildings, period? Just questioning on that, because I don't know. I think the store owners should have the right to pick their option themselves.
Okay. Steve Hackett, you wanted to make a comment?
Well,
see your hand, Paul.
I would just like to say that I think everybody should be wearing masks also, and let the chips fall as they may. But we have a lot of old people in this community, and it's their benefit that we do this, but it's to all of our benefits. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Paul, I saw your hand. Paul Hagan?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to say that I'm against this. I think it's an overreach of government to require masks throughout the entire city. I prefer to let business owners or individuals decide that on themselves. And I don't feel it's our place to do this.
Scott?
This is not a position for or against right now, but I'd just like to make a statement here that, to me, you're passing an ordinance. Now, I don't know about the definition of law. To me, that means it's a law, which means it sounds like you want the police to get involved, to enforce it. And I don't think our police have time to do that. And I'm not sure if that's the proper way to do it. That's all.
I'd like to add.
Go ahead. Dimitri, go ahead.
Okay. I also am opposed to the idea of enforcing it. I think simply passing the ordinance, but without enforcement, would go a long way toward encouraging people to make the right decision. And we could always revisit it and come up with some enforcement later on down the road. But just to pass it and make a statement as to what proper protocol is in the city of Wopac, I think is worthwhile.
Dave has his hand up. Dave Peterson.
I'd like to inform also that, in my opinion, I think it would be better worded to say the city of Waupaca highly recommends masks everywhere, rather than say you have to. That's a little bit different, and I would hope everybody would wear them. But I just like that wording better. It's not put out and enforce that type of wording, I think.
Well, if I may, the benefit of making it a must as opposed to a recommendation, one of the benefits is that it gives individual business owners legal cover to enforce face mask requirements if they want to enforce them. If a patron refuses to wear a face mask, then the business can ask the person to leave, and if the person refuses to leave, well, then there could be some enforcement. could be trespassing or disorderly conduct, perhaps. But I'm in favor of letting the individual business owners decide how strongly they're going to push it within their own establishments. But I do think we should have an ordinance.
Okay, anybody else?
I got something.
Yes, Eric, I'm sorry.
Well, if Pick and Save just said that you have to wear masks or any other businesses, there's not a city enforcement there. It's just each business has the right to say, if you're coming into this business, you have to wear a mask, right? So why does the city have to get involved? Can't each business decide on their own and post it? I would think, since it's their business, if somebody doesn't obey the desire of that business, that they have to have a mask, that they do have some, they could call the police and say this person is out of line, but it doesn't have to be a city ordinance to do that.
Before we go on, I just want to do something here for virtual. Aaron, I don't know if you saw, or if you have control, or Josh, if you have control, there was a question, it looks like somebody that's attending that asked if they could comment, and the answer is no right now, so.
Yep, I did see that, Mayor. I wasn't sure if you could see those or not. I was waiting for a kind of a moment to jump in there, so.
Okay, thank you. Paul Mail.
Yep.
This is a health issue. The CDC has said that if everyone wore masks, we would be done with this situation, or have it under control at least in 6 to 8 weeks. World Health Organization has recommended it. Other agencies have recommended it. This is a common sense thing. It's going to save people from getting sick. As far as overreach of government, government requires people wear seatbelts. That's for their own protection. As a city, we require people to shovel the sidewalks in the winter and to cut their grass in the summer. We do things like this all the time, and this is a matter of public health, and I agree the enforcement issue is difficult, but I believe this is something the city needs to do for the health of the citizens.
Mary Fair?
I totally agree with Paul. I also think that in the perfect world, if we highly recommended masks, everybody would wear them, but it's not, it doesn't happen that way. So I think that in view of the science that we have to prove that mask wearing slows down, if not prevents the spread of the COVID virus, we have an obligation to be leaders and to not just encourage, but mandate that people indoors wear a mask and outdoors wear a mask if they cannot be socially distanced. There's difficulties that come with that. There's the idea of restaurants and pulling your mask down to eat and that sort of thing. I mean, what I've been reading is that if you're someplace like that, if you're with your table of people and you're 6 feet away from other people, you can take your mask off. There's good common sense ways to get around that. So I think we shouldn't be afraid of those kind of what ifs, because it's our responsibility to take the lead here. And so I totally agree that we should have an ordinance or an order for mandatory masking.
Okay, other council comments? Aaron, you've done quite a bit of research on this, quite honestly. Are there any additional questions that you came up with, and maybe some answers to those questions too, that might be helpful for the council?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Smith. So I just wrote a couple Q&A type questions down as notes here that I just wanted to go through, as they were thoughts on our minds and likely are thoughts on yours. I already went through 2 of those, and that talked to the legal aspect of enacting such an ordinance, and the fact, do we open ourselves up to legal challenges? And I already spoke to those. The next one was, are we the appropriate entity to make this type of mandate? And in an ideal world, the answer is probably not. The county's public health department is in place as the public health experts for our area. And they, we've talked about the authority to make such an ordinance. Well, they assuredly do have the authority to make such an ordinance if they felt like it was needed and appropriate for the situation. Next question, if the ultimate goal is to keep people safe and healthy, what ultimate impact does a city ordinance have? And that's something that I think is, if we have an ordinance in place, the ultimate goal is certainly to keep our citizens healthy and everyone around us healthy. And that's a good question. What is the impact if we have an ordinance? And I don't know if anyone can answer that question. One thing to consider is that the city does have a population of about 6,100 people. The Waupaca area is about 15,500 when taking into account the 4 surrounding townships. So again, that does talk to the county level type of ordinance or order would obviously help in with those types of things into consideration as well. Is a mask ordinance something we feel like we can enforce? And this is a conversation that's been had a little bit, and it's a conversation I've had with Chief Hozell. And Chief, you can speak to this a little bit as well, but I know that it's not something that we feel that the police department necessarily has resources to enforce. They're pretty limited on what we can do when it comes to responding to individual calls. Now, to Dimitri's point, something with if it was a trespassing complaint or something like that, I think that is, that's something that may be different. But to think that our police department can respond to each call on someone not wearing masks, it just, it's just not going to happen likely. Chief, do you have anything to add to that, or is that about right?
No, I think that about covers it. But then the other thing you have to take into consideration too is the number of calls that would go into our dispatch center. They only have a few people that are in the dispatch center that are handling a lot of emergency calls, and the people that'll be waiting on hold. So that's all the other information I would have.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. And then just the last question and answer I have is, what other communities have enacted such an ordinance in the state of Wisconsin? The League of Wisconsin Municipalities recently sent out a survey in which they received responses from 138 municipalities. That survey was put out late last week, and within those, 8 respondents said that they had already enacted a mask ordinance. I do know that at least 2 of them were actually referring to their county public health ordinance. It kind of came out later that they answered that incorrectly, misinterpreted the question. And I do know a handful of others, at least 2 of them, have their own health departments. So that would be the city of Milwaukee and the city of Madison. So that leaves about 4 who may have enacted a mask ordinance without having their own health department. What's unclear in that data is, did their county health department have an order or an emergency order in place that supported that ordinance? And that is not data that was collected, and I don't have the answer to that, but I think it's important to have that conversation, as we kind of had before when Tom was talking about the legalities of it. 17, it is important to note, 17 other municipalities were considering an ordinance at the time. They just hadn't acted on it. And then 101 municipalities in that survey were not considering a masking ordinance at that time. Now, I know obviously everyone's in a different spot and situations are different everywhere. But that's just some information that I saw through the League of Wisconsin Municipalities that is directly related to this. And I know Paul was raising his hand before, but I think, Paul, your hand was off the screen. So I don't know if Mayor saw you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Yeah. Aaron, you're finished then?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Paul, go ahead. Paul Hagan.
Oh, thank you. What I am hearing is that certain members of the council want to pass an ordinance that is not going to be enforced, which is difficult to enforce, which may clog up our emergency lines. And if you're at a restaurant or something, you just simply have to interpret what the ordinance says or go with the best flow that you can. The other thing I heard was all indoor buildings, which at this point I have to assume that I would have to wear a mask within my own home, which I haven't heard any discussion about that. So once again, I am not in favor of this at all. I think it's a gross overreach of government, and it should be something that should be considered on the county level, if at all. And the fact that the county has dropped their emergency declaration speaks a great deal as to what they think this situation is. I certainly respect the individuals on the council who feel this is necessary, but I respectfully disagree.
Okay. Any other comments, Scott?
I want to ask Tom, is there a definition difference between a resolution and an ordinance?
Well, I think in this circumstance, you're talking about the difference between a resolution, which is a sort of a public proclamation, and then an ordinance as to whether or not you're going to have a penalty provision if it's violated. So, for this conversation, that would be that distinction.
Tom, I just wanted to mention, I did see one community that did pass. They're kind of listed in the ordinances section, one of these 8, and theirs was in fact a resolution that they didn't enforce. I apologize, I can't remember which community that was, but there was a community that did it per a resolution.
I've been looking at different ones, and I think it's hard because some of them are county orders that are then wrapped into a municipal resolution. But
okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Ellen, go ahead.
As I mentioned before, if I had my druthers, I think it would be more expedient to do it in the form of a resolution. If we go with an ordinance, that is time consuming and it delays it considerably, in my opinion. I think we need to act now.
Unfortunately, we can't act now because we don't have that ability in this discussion.
I think his comment, Paul, actually meant that a resolution would go through council quicker than an ordinance would go. But correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. But, yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. Any other comments?
So,
go ahead, Mary.
So, thank you. So where do we go from here? What happens? What's the next step?
It's funny
How does
because
the process work?
I got that same sentence written on my sheet of paper that you just said, but yeah. So where do we go from here? We obviously can't do anything tonight because this is just open for discussion purposes only. We could do what we call a straw vote, where we see if you want to move forward with either a resolution or an ordinance, or to continue the discussion for the future. We could ask the county to weigh in on this and see if we can't get them to help us. Although, Aaron, you want to just touch on comments that we've received from the county, and I'll try and fill in a little bit too, because we have had the discussion with the Wopac County Health Department also.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So yeah, we've been talking, as you guys probably know, to the Waupaca County Health Department and JED once or twice a week since this thing started. And I can't say enough about the communication that JED has had, and I know his job's been difficult at this time. And I think he's done a really good job for us. As far as them looking to put an order in place, like anytime in the near future, like a week or 2 weeks, I can't speak for him, and maybe something's changed. But last time I talked to him, that didn't sound like it would happen, at least in the near future. I do want to state though that, circling back to the beginning of this conversation, whatever direction we go, if it's in the direction of some sort of an ordinance or a resolution or something like that, I think one of the steps that would have to be taken would be to go back to the public health department at the county and say, we would need some sort of written support or something, especially with the fact that their county order has subsided. And that was a part of that legal defensiveness that we talked about.
So, I might need multiple people to explain this to me, but we weren't, we were talking ordinance versus a mayoral statement of emergency. And now tonight we also talked resolution. So if I understand right, if we were to do a resolution does not require a public hearing, where an ordinance would require a public hearing. That would be more municipal. Is that correct, Tom? Does that sound?
Yes, and I think that, my recommendation is if you're going to have something that is going to be a rule or a law of the city that can be broken and enforced and fined, you need it in the form of an ordinance versus a resolution. If you're going to have a policy suggestion or a policy of the city, you would do it through a resolution.
So if you did a resolution, it would be more of a recommendation?
Correct.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to have that cleared up to me. This is what we get paid the big bucks for, guys. So
Yeah.
let's figure it out. All right, so where do we go now? Usually we end a discussion with doing nothing. And that will be what happens tonight. I meant under this section, number 10, it's just a discussion that we have to inform people of what's going on. I think in the best interest of really getting a good feel for where everybody is, we maybe should just go around the room and find out what your feeling is on that. And I guess, sorry, my glasses are steaming up here. Tell me if you disagree with me, I guess. Might not matter, but so, I mean, if we go around the room and we would say you're in favor of an ordinance, a masking ordinance, a masking resolution, or neither. So those are your three choices, and then your answers, of course, could be yes, no, and abstain. I guess. Are we okay with that? Or do you want to move on in the agenda?
I'd like to see it voted on.
Remember, this is not
voted.
A straw vote.
It's just a straw vote. Okay, so it's not mandatory that we follow this, but it would help.
I agree. Let's do that, Mayor.
Okay, anybody against it?
No.
I am.
Paul? Okay. So I guess you have four choices. You can, for voting, you can say yes, no, abstain, or don't say anything. I guess, if the majority agree that they want to do this straw vote. Anybody else that's against it?
Well,
I'd like to say without knowing what's in it, I can't say either way.
Exactly.
Okay,
So I'm gonna just say nothing.
okay.
That would be my position. We need more information before we do anything. So this straw vote, I don't know if it's the way to go, but yeah, we'll see.
Well-
You can hold the vote here and I'll say my position.
As I said before, I'm in favor, first, of a resolution or proclamation, secondly, an ordinance. And to that end, I would be willing to draft either of them for consideration by council at either a special meeting or the next meeting.
Well, this is a difficult decision. You guys have to make the vote. I'm just trying to run this meeting as well as I think I can here. I think, the information really comes down to, you can add anything you want to it, but what it really comes down to is, do we require that the citizens of Waupaca wear a mask? And yeah, you could say, well, does it include when they're walking down the street? Well, those are things that we'll work through when we go through the ordinance. But it's still, if you're looking for an argument to say no, that's fine. If you're looking for an argument to say yes, that makes it easier too. But this is not an easy decision, and I appreciate where everybody's coming from. But again, like I said, this is what we get paid the big dollars for. If you had a request, and I've said this to a number of council people already, if you as a city council member had a request to put something on the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I told you no, that you couldn't, you would think it would be unfair too. So, I think having this discussion tonight was something that was requested, and that's why we're having this tough discussion tonight. Dave, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was going to express my opinion that I think an ordinance really drag things out. And I think it's important to get things going kind of quickly. I would be in favor of a resolution. Put the ordinance in. I think every store owner is going to have supply masks for, here, you must wear a mask. If you don't have one, here's one here for you. They have to have a mask, or we got to put masks in every building in the city. There'd just be a lot of trouble that way and unnecessary, I think. But I do think masks are important, so I'm hung up on this too. I think a resolution is the way to go.
Okay.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
Would it be possible to pass a resolution and then follow it with an ordinance?
Yes.
So that might be a way to address some concern about expediency. We could still do an ordinance after a resolution then.
All right, so that isn't an option, that is not an option tonight, but we can have that in the future. But yeah, that's a good question.
Mayor, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
My opinion is that it's maybe we should get the folks who are for this and who are against this to sit down and see if there's some common ground where something can be worked out to everybody's satisfaction.
It's a good comment, Paul, and if you do it in an ordinance form, that's what's going to happen, because you have to have a public hearing. And so anybody that would like to speak on the ordinance would have the ability to make comments about it. But I fully agree, and I think all of council agrees that we certainly would want to get public opinion on this before we approved it. Maybe not all of you, but I certainly would want to see that. Paul Mayo?
I'd be in favor of a resolution also. It's not a law, it's not enforceable, but if it even motivates a few people to wear masks, I think that's a plus. So a resolution, please.
Scott?
Back to Aaron's point, he intimated that he needs some type of approval from the county health department. I'm kind of vague on that, and I guess I'm not sure what the answer is before we even do anything. Is that
Well-
true, Aaron?
Well, no, so, I mean, this is a question that we asked on Monday, so it was in Aaron's question and answer. Jed did say that he was willing to bring something forward there, but he felt uncomfortable with actually stating it as a state of an emergency. Does that sound accurate to you, Aaron? And Justin, you were on there too, so if you're.
Yeah, some sort of like in it. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the wording he used, but that I probably couldn't explain it any better. That's about right.
So Scott, again, I'm really just looking for resolution, ordinance, or nothing.
Eric's point of, I don't know what you're expecting from the straw poll, then what if,
Resolution, ordinance, or nothing.
okay, but then is it going to be, if there's a majority for one, then we're going to proceed? Or I'm not quite sure you're, is something?
Resolution, ordinance, or nothing. I don't know how to answer any of the questions that you just answered. You know, I mean, it's a straw vote, so, I mean, what you're doing is you're giving staff and the mayor's office the ability to look into whatever the majority option is. You don't have to answer, Scott. I'm not trying to press you. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we understand where we're trying to get when we're done here. Mary?
I'm going to vote for a resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll go with the resolution also, Brian.
All right, Steve. Alan? Alan, you said resolution?
Yeah, I said resolution first, ordinance second.
All right. And Dimitri, you're,
Resolution first, ordinance second.
okay. And Eric, I don't know that I asked you, but it doesn't matter.
No, I'll just stay silent on this, I guess. for now.
Okay. Yeah. Same thing, Scott. Okay. So the majority of the council members are thinking a resolution is the direction to go in. And quite honestly, I don't think that's a discussion that we've had. Aaron, we haven't had that, you and I don't think we've had that with any legal people either at this time, have we?
No, not in detail. Really not at all, to be honest.
All right.
Mayor, I guess I'd ask if you go that route, that we get a definition, all of us, of what a resolution is and how it's worded. And you said it's not enforced. I mean, I guess it's just a suggestion. Is that what I guess I don't need a definition. I'm not quite sure. I just know cities have done some of those things. And
Right. My suggestion is that if Waupaca is going to pass a rule or a law that is going to require people in the city limits to do a certain act or not do a certain act, it needs to be in the form of an ordinance that would have a penalty provision.
If it's passed in the form of a resolution, it would be like a policy, a city policy and a recommendation. Now, I know, for example, that Oshkosh has recently passed a resolution that was a recommendation for people to wear masks.
Thanks, that kind of clears it up a little bit.
I'll change mine to a resolution.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
even if we have a resolution, I would be in favor of, even though it's not required, having public input on it.
We have done that in the past too, so we would not be doing something that we never do. I mean, even though a resolution is not required for a public hearing, we do that, and quite honestly, we do it every year when we do our budget. Because our budget is a resolution and we still have a public hearing. So it's not something that we don't do.
So Mayor, I would have a question follow up on that. So would that mean it would be like having a public hearing at a council meeting, which could then delay getting a resolution passed almost as long as it would take an ordinance, which is why I would lean towards a resolution, or why I did, because it would be a quicker way of getting that policy out there than waiting and going through all the steps we need to do to enact an ordinance. Or would we have a special meeting that we could take public opinion during, so that we can move this along more quickly and get it done?
Tom.
So the procedure that the Code of Ordinance says about passing ordinances and resolutions, 2.06 sub 1, the final line, is no ordinance shall be considered for final passage on the same day that it is introduced unless by suspension of the rules. So that is where you're getting the multiple readings from, and that does not require, or excuse me, does not apply to a resolution. Okay. So a resolution can be passed on the same day that it's read.
Okay, but my question came from the fact that, if we're going to get public input, because some people feel that that's necessary, and certainly, how could you be against public input? But if that's going to slow us down, that's what I'm concerned about. That might muddy the waters enough that it's going to slow us down and we won't get anything passed.
Well, it's still going to be faster than an ordinance. Even if it slows it down, it's still going to be faster.
Well, I'm hearing Tom say that if we have a public hearing before a council meeting where the resolution's introduced, we can vote on the resolution that same meeting. Is that correct, Tom? That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You can, as long as the public input has not changed what the resolution is going to say.
Right.
And I think that's what Mary's trying to get at, is that if you have public input and there are changes made to that resolution, you probably would not vote on that resolution the same night as the public input. But, so then you would go to the next meeting, but again, you wouldn't require a second reading on that.
Right. I feel so strongly that we as a group need to take some leadership here, and I think we need to just do the resolution. I think we need to skip public input. I think we've had public input. I think there's so much public input out there in the news and in the world already that our population here is probably a microcosm of the country at large. And there are going to be people against it. There are going to be people for it. And all the reasons are, we've all been reading it on social media. We know what the arguments are for and against. I think we need to take some leadership and get this thing done. And then, and if we do a resolution and we don't have to worry about the enforcement piece, we can see how that goes and move towards an ordinance if in fact that's appropriate going forward.
Mayor, I don't see a problem with a public hearing. The resolution is pretty simple. The city recommends you wear a mask or you don't wear a mask. And I don't know what kind of complication could be introduced to have that resolution wording altered so that we need to delay a meeting. I see this resolution as very simple, and it's either yes or no. And I anticipate after a public hearing, we'd be able to vote on a resolution that same meeting.
If I may,
Go ahead, Paul.
I feel very strongly that we do need to involve the public because this is something that could potentially impact them. And I don't feel it's ever a good idea to rush through resolutions or ordinances based on the fact that we want to get something done and we don't necessarily need to have public input. There are opinions other than what is being discussed, and those need to be aired so that we can all have a fair input into this.
Okay. So again, the majority of the people have stated through a straw vote that they would like to see a resolution brought to the August 4th City Council meeting. And so we'll keep you informed as we move forward through that process. So in between now and August 4th, we'll keep you informed on that. Okay?
Will there be a public hearing then, or
Yeah,
you'll decide, or may I make a comment on that? If you have a public hearing, you might want to consider bigger quarters because it could attract a big crowd. Just a off comment. Not that I'm against the public hearing, but I don't may have a jam-packed crowd.
Like where?
Well, just the thought.
So are you against?
No, I'm not against the public.
input?
No, I'm
Okay.
just I just trying to.
Okay.
I would think you'd have to have some plan as to how to handle people lining up or
Right.
whatever it is, if you're going to do it. I'm in favor of public opinion too.
Yeah.
If you
Oh, public hearing's
do it,
fine.
I don't
yeah,
have
just,
a problem with it, but it's just going to be a little logistical problem.
Yes, it may be a logistical problem.
I think that's something we can discuss, Scott, and certainly
Sure.
is something we discuss even if we maybe in instances where that hasn't happened and we think maybe it might. So I think your comment is well taken, and we will take that into consideration for whenever that date is.
All right, thanks.
If I may make a comment,
Yes, sir.
would it be possible that we allow public hearing in the form of like a written position to the council? Maybe limit the number of words so it's not, too long, but give multiple people an opportunity to express their opinions in writing.
Yeah.
And then that could be read before the council.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that right now for public input. When we do get emails or letters, we do try to read those as long as they put their name on there and at least where they live, whether they live within the city or the towns or within this world. We would certainly, I think that is a way of reducing the number of people that might attend too, if they can still get their voice heard.
I will say that I've had a couple constituents email me without a mask, and Mary and I got one or two from, besides the ones you've gotten over to everybody.
Yeah, and this
That
is
is a
what.
way to let us know.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I didn't mean to interrupt you. When we get emails from constituents on an issue that I think involves all of the council, even though it might be directed just toward you, and that's what we've been trying to do. I know I've been trying to do that, and Aaron has been trying to do that too. If you receive an email that you think does involve a decision that the whole council has to make, we've been trying to forward that on. So you might want to recommend that to the people that are going to send you an email or a letter, that they CC everybody in on that, so we all get that. And if we get it ahead of time, that obviously would help us too. So, yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of emails and messages that are roaming.
I think we can make a little push through social media or promotion wise to get it in writing. Just because when it's in writing, we can forward it to council members. There are a lot of times where I get phone calls, and that's fantastic too, but it's a little harder to kind of give that on to you guys if it's in a voicemail or so on and so forth. So we can make a push that way to get it in writing.
Okay, anything else on this? So again, we had a discussion tonight during our no action required time. Out of that discussion, council has taken a straw vote and has asked city staff and the mayor's office to look at putting together a resolution that would have a mask. Is requirement the right term? Is that what you guys are looking for here, or mask requirement, or strongly suggest that you wear a mask? Mask requirement. Is that what most of you assumed?
I would assume that it would be language that would that would be similar to what an ordinance might have, like the city is hereby resolves that citizens should wear a mask in public indoor spaces.
Okay.
For instance.
Again, I understand that you guys are not concerned about the enforcement part of it, but we're going to have that discussion obviously with our local law enforcement too, because even if we don't have enforcement as one of the things that we're thinking here, they're still going to get phone calls, and we have to see how we're going to be able to handle that. If we make it a requirement without teeth, we'll have to see how that's going to work.
Mayor?
Yes, Paul, go ahead.
I would be in favor of the term recommend, or perhaps strongly recommend, but against requirement.
Okay.
And I'm the opposite. I would say make it a requirement.
Okay. All right. Anything else in this area? Everybody understands what we got out of this? I don't think we went over 30 minutes. I mean, we went to like 50 or 60, but not over 30. Okay. Anything else for the good of the meeting tonight? We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Keelan, that we adjourn our our meeting tonight, and our next council meeting is August 4th, 2020, subject to call. All in favor, signify by